Moving on, and Israeli negotiators have offered Hamas a 3-day extension on the temporary ceasefire if they agree to release all remaining women and children currently being held in Gaza. Under the current truce agreement, which was originally set for 4 days but has so far been extended by 2 more, 60 Israeli hostages have been handed over by Hamas. This comes as Hamas has claimed the youngest hostage, 10-month-old Kfir Bibas, was killed in an earlier Israeli strike. Joining me now to discuss this, former senior military intelligence officer Philip Ingram. Philip, good afternoon to you. Let's just start with that very unconfirmed. It has come from Hamas. They are finger-pointing in this statement as well, but claiming that Kfir, the little 10-year-old boy, has been killed along with his mother and brother.
Yes, such sad news. I remember the last few days there's been this pawn, he's been used as a pawn, suggesting it was passed over to another Palestinian group, and that's why he couldn't be released. And I remember thinking to myself that I suspect he's probably been killed at some stage, and they're just trying to find some way of getting that message out, which it's yet to be confirmed, but I suspect, horribly, it's true.
This story has really captured everybody. It's very symbolic of the futility and the extraordinary depths that a terror group will go to by even going there in the first place with vulnerable people and children and babies in this case. This little boy is one of many that were taken, of course. Does this particular story change the face of this raging war? We're in a ceasefire at the moment, but one can't see that lasting forever. Does this accelerate Israel's intentions now to really get on with the job?
Not really. Israel will be first and foremost concerned about the remaining hostages and do anything they can to get them released. It's from a political perspective, from a psychological perspective, and Hamas knew this. Israeli hostages are something that really hits hard at home in Israeli domestic politics, and that has got a over and above the numbers of individuals, it's got a real hold on the political leadership inside Israel. But Israel can't let this go on too much longer. We hear lots of naive people saying Israel should just extend the ceasefire and turn it into permanent ceasefire. Well, that would be Israel turning around and declaring a ceasefire with an organization that is still intent on the destruction of Israel as a state and the murder of every Jew. That's Hamas's stated point. There is no common ground on the table for both of them to negotiate from, and you can't have such a one-sided approach to things, because Israel would just be given into Hamas then. So unless something comes quickly, Israel has to restart this conflict to try and make Hamas militarily incapable again.
What is your sense in terms of these ceasefire extensions? Is it really feasible to, as you rightly said, it would be ridiculous for these to carry on given what Israel are up against, a terror group. By the same token, we'd all like to see fighting stop. Do you sense this latest truce, once these hostages are out, will be the last?
I don't know whether it'll be the last. We don't know what's going on in the background. There's clearly a lot of work going on in Qatar with the Hamas leadership that are there. There's clearly a lot of work going on with the main Palestinian leadership, the Palestinian Authority. We have to remember that Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. It is a terror group. The Palestinian Authority is the internationally recognized representatives of the Palestinian people. And they had a civil war with Hamas themselves only a few years ago. So there's a lot of pressure going on in the background. And what Hamas may do is try and leave Gaza and move to somewhere else that might meet Israel's remit of destroying Hamas militarily, if they can't do that. So there's an outside hope that something may come, but we're just not aware of that in the public domain at the moment. If it doesn't come, then Israel needs to restart its military conflict as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, to do that, because there's been this loss in momentum, it means a violent start again, and that violent start will result in Israeli casualties and unfortunately more civilian Palestinian casualties.
And Philip, just a final point. What role do you sense the British government are playing in this, other than supporting the position and the rights of Israel here?
I think supporting the position, the rights of Israel, and it's also supporting the wider international community influence that's going on. The biggest influence is the US influence, but we shouldn't underestimate the influence that the UK's got across the Gulf region, mainly behind closed doors, and will be quietly working away and working the diplomacy. That's why we saw the Foreign Secretary jump into different Gulf countries, because it's not just supporting what Israel's doing and supporting the negotiations that are going on with Hamas to try and resolve the current conflict, but it's also trying to stop the conflict expanding into a wider Middle East conflict. Yeah. That's why the Americans put 2 carrier battle groups in. That's why there's been a lot of diplomacy into different Middle East countries, because they have got a direct influence on what's going on in Israel, between Israel and Gaza today. And that seems to be, touch wood, working at the moment.
Philip, thank you for your view on this. Always good to get an expert view from Philip Ingram there, former senior military intelligence officer.